And now on Music in Melbourne with Tim Hannah, that's my name, on 3MBS Fine Music Melbourne. Wonderful to have your company. And moving on, our next interview is going to be with Melbourne composer Samuel Alexander. Now, he started composing from an early age, and he's created many wonderfully emotive and moving piano compositions, particularly over the last year, where he's been broadcasting via the streaming platform Twitch. We're going to talk to him about that and about his compositions very shortly, but I thought I'd start with a little bit of his music. This is For Joe. For Joe by Melbourne composer Samuel Alexander. And I'm actually going to get Samuel Alexander to talk about that piece on air for us. He's waiting on the phone. Sam, welcome to Music in Melbourne.
Oh, thank you very much, Tim.
Tell us about this piece For Joe, and then we'll launch into talking about some of the other things. But what was the inspiration for that particular work that we just heard?
Yeah, sure thing. So this is actually a piece that I wrote as a way of processing some pain and loss. At the end of 2019, my aunt unfortunately passed away, and I started composing a piece in honor of her. And it started out sounding really sad, but as I started to process, I started to actually think of how I want to remember the things that really made her who she was. And so through the piece, you can actually hear a constant beat that keeps coming back to, and it ends on that constant beat, and that kind of represents her heartbeat continuing on even after she's moved on and is no longer with us. So, yeah, that's where the inspiration came for that one.
It's something that I like to ask composers when we have them on the program is what encouraged you or inspired you to start writing your own music? I mean, a lot of composers seem to have some other musical instrumental education or something before they start writing. What was the impetus for you to start putting pen to paper or I guess, note to page?
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, I've always had an interest in compositions. I used to love listening to music scores growing up, but never really got into creating my own music until later in my adult life. And I guess in that time, it was just more about me just expressing my emotion, kind of processing pain, processing things that were going on in my life around me. And a couple of years ago, I had some big life events happen, so ended up having a lot of emotion to deal with, and so for me it was really a way of resolving that and going through those things and processing the things that I've been experiencing. So yeah, that's where the inspiration came from, and then I was encouraged more to continue producing more music through my online presence and the community I created there on Twitch, which I'm sure we'll talk about a little bit later on.
I was actually just going to bring that up, funnily enough. This is a platform that some 3MBS listeners may not be familiar with, but online streaming platform, Twitch. Can you describe to us, I guess, what that's been like as a composer using that platform? It's a platform that's, I guess, is more familiar to some people as a live streaming video gaming platform of some kind as well. What's it been like presenting your music on that? And you mentioned the word community quite a few times in the notes I have here as well. Can you describe what you mean by that as well? Yeah,
sure thing. So I know a lot of artists would more likely communicate with their people that follow them more as like a fan base, but for myself, because of the way that we're able to do things through our Twitch platform, it does become a community. It's a very interactive platform. So the way that it works is, as you mentioned, it's very much for video games. You can live stream your video gameplay. You can live stream your just chatting in your daily life. But there's an awesome category on there which has been growing exponentially, and it's the music category, where you can actually go on and present your own music that you've been creating, or you can play covers, and there's a chat involved in that as well. So while you're performing, people can write to you, and you can read their comments and interact with them. So when I'm streaming, I'll get song requests that I actually will play for people all around the world, as well as then going through my own compositions that I've created. So for me, it's actually been an incredible place to share some of the things that I've been writing, and quite often they're the people that encourage me, and they're the people that have given me amazing ideas for new pieces. They're the biggest support to me. But yeah, Twitch as a music platform is incredible. There are artists, there are independent artists and bands that are given an opportunity to create, as you'd say, a fan base. But for me, it's more of a community as we interact outside of streaming as well through a server where we can share our pictures about our life and things like that. So yeah, I've got people from all over the world, but I see them more as family and community than anything else.
It's interesting. You're talking there almost about like a two-way relationship, and something that we, I guess, as audience members and performers see with the stage, live performance on stage thing is you perform, you get a round of applause, that's your affirmation, then you're kind of done a lot of the time. What you're describing here is more of a, you're getting feedback on what's sticking and what's not, and what's working and what's making people feel things and respond to it. Do you find that influences what you create and how you create things more than, say, if you were performing and just getting a round of applause and a pat on the back in that sense?
No, 100%. Half of my pieces are actually pieces that have been written around that platform. So I've had a few of my compositions that were, through a game that we played on stream. Someone gave me some numbers and I did some improvisation over those, with that inspiration. So I created a piece through that. I have a piece that was written, interestingly enough, by one of my friends I was playing a video game with on the platform, and he was a little bit drunk. He sung a song about me live, and we took the notes that he sung and turned it into a composition. And my newest piece, First Light, I was playing that for people the first time that I ever played it on my stream, and my chat started talking about how the vision and the visuals that they saw while they were listening to it was like a new dawn. It was like, they were seeing birds flying around. And so I actually unmuted my microphone while I played my piece on the piano, and I started whistling like a bird. So, making sounds like things like that, and just playing it. And they were fascinated. And ever since I played that piece for them, that visual just never left my head. And so when I actually produced First Light, I included a bird track, which you might hear a little bit later on.
We will listen to that in just a moment. I'm so intrigued because for a lot of listeners out there familiar with the development of art forms like art songs, piano sonatas, this kind of salon music that we have in, for lack of a better word, the classical canon, was developed in situations like this where people were sitting around not just listening to the music but discussing it and doing exactly what you were saying, having these conversations with the composers about, it made me feel like this, it did that, and then they'd go away and they'd improvise, they'd do things and entertain. So it sounds like you're very much continuing that tradition, but in a completely, in a very 21st century way.
Yeah, for sure.
No, it's fascinating. So the new work that you've just mentioned, First Light, is you've just described it a little bit for us. This you're releasing or have just released on the 2nd of June. Where can people, we're going to listen to it now, but where can people go to find out more about your music and perhaps check out the Twitch stream as well?
Yeah, for sure. I do have a link on my Instagram, which is Samuel Alexander Music. That should take you to all of my social networks. But yeah, so if you want to check out some music streams, you go to twitch.tv and find the music category. I'm in there. But yeah, you can find me through either my Instagram or I do also have a Facebook page, Samuel Alexander. Those are the places to find me.
Wonderful. I might get you to introduce this particular piece, First Light. You've given us a little bit of an explanation. I note here as well, you've described it as coming to you like an exhale. Perhaps introduce the piece and maybe just explain what you mean by that particular phrase as well.
Yeah, for sure. So obviously over this past year in Melbourne, it's been fairly chaotic and there's been a lot of uncertainty. Earlier on in this current year, I was feeling those things. I was really feeling quite uptight, feeling quite stressed. And when I feel that way, I quite often turn to music and either listen to or play something. And so I went and sat at the piano and really tense, felt like I'd been holding my breath. And so I just sat down and pressed a few notes until I found the notes that I was really resonating with, just that, whatever it might have felt like. And I eventually found the notes that it really needed to be. And as I just started to play, it felt like I was just letting go of that breath I'd been holding for a long time, just relaxing into it.
Wonderful.
And so the chaos and that uncertainty started to kind of pass. So
thank you so much, Samuel Alexander, for joining us on Music in Melbourne.
No worries. Thank you very much for having me, Tim.
Samuel Alexander's First Light. And for more information about his music, you can find him on Instagram at Samuel Alexander Music, and go there to find links to his Twitch stream, various other platforms that we were just talking about in the interview. So we've got time for today on Music in Melbourne. Up next is Film Scores with Richard Leatham.